Biafrans were massacred. As it literally, my mom was the only survivor. I want to tell you what it means. My mom was born in a family of 10. My mom was the only survivor.
Hello and welcome to Talk of Today, where we explore developments in science, technology and society, and what they could mean for the future. I'm your host, Sam Barton. This episode today is quite different to what I normally do. Instead of talking about the developments that are going to shape humanity's future, we're going to be looking into just one example of how national interests are put before human rights and the inability of the current nation-state model to deal with issues of identity. My guest in this episode is Gosife Okenta. He's a master's student at the University of Queensland in Brisbane. We met at the start of this year and began what I thought would be a brief conversation. However, over the following 2 hours, Gosife brought to my attention the tragic plight of the Biafran people. His people. I was ashamed to admit I had never heard of the country. Biafra was a secessionist state in eastern Nigeria that existed from the 30th of May in 1967 to January 1970. In 1960, Nigeria became independent from the United Kingdom. It's an example of where the borders of the country do not reflect the cultural boundaries of the region. In some instances, these issues manifest in some ethnic groups being treated like second-class citizens. The problems that arose in parts of Nigeria, or some would say Biafra, has resulted in the deaths of millions to date. For the past few decades, the Biafrans have rebelled, seeking to secede from Nigeria to end years of marginalization, to have control of their political destiny so that they can build factories and roads, cities and bridges, so that they don't have to depend on somebody in the capital, where their pleas fall on seemingly deaf ears. I thought I'd share the story of Gosife and the Biafran people to not only highlight the tragic history that many of you, like me, might not have been aware of, but to also get you to think about just a few things. Like, what is a national identity? And how does it differ to the attachment one has to their religion, or the city or state that they live in? In a world where countries can be created and destroyed with a flick of a pen, should the pursuit of the sometimes infuriating term national interests justify some of the atrocities that affect millions of people around the world? Like the offshore detention camps of Australia, where children are attempting suicide, or the abhorrent crimes committed in North Korea, or the global issue of the refugee crisis, or the ongoing plight of the Biafran people. These countries are social constructs. Their borders only exist in our minds, but the suffering of those shackled by the bonds of their national identity is all too real. Many of us in the Western world use our national identities as a way of shielding ourselves from the responsibilities to our common man. It's their problem, not ours. They're not our citizens. Let their own countries take care of them. I'll tell you this. We are complicit. We are a part of the problem. This is just one example of the issue of sovereignty in our globalized world. It's so interconnected and interdependent that what happens in one country can have global ramifications. Though I'm from Australia, I identify as a citizen of the world, a human being. I think it's time for us to formally recognize that we are bound by our humanity and this earth. Technologies available to us today can allow us to create a digital country that anyone on Earth can join, and we can use this recognition to advocate for global interests and as a mechanism to deliver access to basic needs and human rights. If you'd like to hear more about this concept, head to www.globalcitizenship.today. What's outlined on the site are just a few ideas I have of what could be. I don't have all of the answers. But what I do know is that there are enough people in the world who identify as a human being first and foremost, and that technologies available to us today can make this a reality. If you are at all interested in this and you'd like to chat about it, please just reach out. You can get in touch with me through talkoftoday.com or the Talk of Today Facebook page, Talk of Today Official. And without further ado, I present to you my conversation with Gosife Okenta. So we're sitting in my backyard. It's a wonderful Saturday morning. We've got all our bird friends that are chirping along. We've got crows and magpies and you name it. So they'll be joining us in this conversation. They're welcome. So if you'd just like to begin by introducing yourself.
Okay. My name is Gosife Okekenta. I'm a student of University of Queensland, and I hail from Biafra in West Africa. It's a tiny country in West Africa that has remained repressed for God knows how long. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so we met earlier, probably at the start of this year over the holidays. I went into uni to do some work. I was like, oh, it's the holidays and I can't do any work at home because I'm useless. So I'll go to the university and see if I can sit down and use the internet and get some shit done. And we were sitting next to each other near the cafeteria area, and I think I asked you if I could plug something in next to the plug near you, or you did something. You said the same thing or something like that, and we just started talking, and we ended up speaking for like a whole hour and a half about just how messed up the world is in general, but in particular, you highlighted or you brought to light what's going on in Nigeria with regards to the Biafran people, and gave me a bit of a history lesson, and just really made me aware of the plight of the Biafran people, something that I hadn't even heard of Biafra. I think of myself as, half worldly. Like I kind of know a bit about the world, but when it came to the goings on in Africa and Nigeria and Biafra particularly, I just had absolutely no clue. And that conversation was quite stirring. I think we had a wonderful time. It was sad, but it was very it was deep. I think we really connected and had a really, really good conversation. So over the past couple of weeks, we've caught up over the past, 1 or 2 times over the past couple of months. And each time we catch up and we speak about, and you tell me about what's going on, I feel like people need to hear about this. And so here we are. Just having a conversation, just bringing to light what's going on in the area, back home for you with your friends and family. And yeah. So where is Biafra? What is Biafra? Who are the Biafran people? And what are the events that have led us to where we are today, or where you are today?
All right, thank you. Biafra is a territory in West Africa, bordering the Atlantic on this southern part of it, and then on the north you have the Nigeria.
So if Africa's, it's like kind of on that overhang part of Africa.
Yeah,
where it would connect to South America. It's that if you were to get South America and Africa and put them together and like as jigsaw pieces, it's the big. Kind of central west.
No. It's,
nope. Okay.
It's basically where you have it's bordering on the south. It's bordering the ocean, where you have Africa has a shape of a gun. So where you have the trigger, that's where Biafra lies on the trigger.
How appropriate.
Yeah.
How appropriate.
Yeah, it lies on the trigger. In fact, it was if you remember this the Man Who Saw Tomorrow.
I don't think I've seen it, no.
Okay, if not, what's his name? I'll remember his name. The Man Who Saw Tomorrow. He talked about Biafra. That was about 400 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, he said sometime a country that lies on the trigger, on the continent that looks like a gun, those were his prophecies, would rise. I mean, for those of them who believe in prophecies. So literally Biafra lies on the trigger, So, and the Biafran people are made up of predominantly the Igbo tribe, IGBO. It was anglicized. Originally it's Igbo, but the white people, when they arrived the shores of West Africa, where the Biafran land lies, they called the Igbo people. They couldn't pronounce it. They called Hebo. They called Heebo, then Igbo. It's metamorphosized to Igbo, Eboe. It was just from one form to the other. until we had the correct spelling, presented the correct spellings to them. So the Igbo people are predominantly in Biafra with other cousins of them, other tribes. We usually don't refer to them as minority because we don't believe people. You can't be minority
if everyone else is a minority.
Yes, yes. Do you understand? So I mean, it has to be minority against. You're in your land. You can't be a minority. So we usually don't refer to them as minority. We just mention other tribes. So we coexist. We've been coexisting. We share the same anthropological and similarities. We are one people, same value.
Same dress, same food.
Dressing, same food, same culture. For thousands of years. So before the arrival of the Europeans. So when the Europeans came, basically, they sought to, it was their quest for resources. So when they came, they discovered that the land was rich of mineral resources. So, they were seeking for ways to, get those territories together. All over Africa. This was happening at the same time all over Africa. So but particularly in Biafran territory, we were seeking ways to, but the people they met there were, they kind of had a system of governance or government for themselves, which was just so difficult to penetrate. The Biafran people were Republicans. They had what they call Council of Chiefs. In English, they call it chiefs, but we call them elders. In traditional Igbo language, we call them Omonna. So these were the people that decide what happens in the society. They make the laws.
But this is for the one tribe or the many tribes?
For the tribes. The tribes.
So they're, as you said, they're not minorities, but all these different tribes of people had chieftains which came together.
Yeah. And they had chiefs. They had chiefs that made laws for them. Mm-hmm. The chiefs represented each and every one of them. Do you understand? Those were the structures in place. So, but, it was just hard for the Europeans. So when the British, particularly when they came, they explored the entire region of West Africa. They saw, in some places you were kings already in place, like in the northern Nigeria, where you have the predominantly Hausa Fulanese. You had
what's that?
Hausa Fulani. That's a tribe.
Okay.
They are Islamic tribe. Mm-hmm. Hausa Fulani. So they are predominantly Muslim. So they already had a monarchy system, more like a feudal system, where you have one person at the helm of affair, and then the rest, just one person that controls the rest of the people. So then, towards down the south, on the southwestern part of what is presently known as Nigeria now, you have another set of people called the Yoruba people. Yeah, the Yoruba people had their monarchy system, the Oni, they call it the Oni, so Oni of Ife. So everybody submits to the Oni. So it was just easy. So the British...
So the Oni
is the king.
Is the king of all the multiple...
All the tribes in that part. He was just the king. So the British, when the British got in contact with them, it was easy to interact it was easy for Britain to, to have them do whatever they say, whatever the British says.
Because they came into the top and spoke to the Oni.
Yes, spoke to the Oni, and the Oni filters the message down. So it was just easy. The same thing was applicable to the north. But when the British now came down to the southern, to the Atlantic, down to the Atlantic where the Biafrans are domiciled, it was just difficult for that to happen because these people had people, it was Republican. There was no one person that make laws. So it was hard. So the British tried so hard. It was so difficult for them. So they had to start erecting kingship for us because we never had kings. So they what they call indirect rule system. So they initiated and introduced indirect rule. So started erecting reps, persons. So neglecting our system. So people would now have to submit to those people, and those people will now dance to the caprices, whims and caprices of the slave master. So basically,
and the slave master here, you mean the British?
Yes.
Yeah. So they came in. They brought in, instead of participating in the local way, they put in people
Yes.
that they
Yes.
wanted to run the
Yes,
place.
they wanted to
and
run
then
the
they, through them, brought about whatever sort of change they wanted to see.
Yes. That was basically what happened. So that was part of the reason how those were how the old system they met was broken. Those what led to the balkanization of the systems they
Was
met.
it quite violent? Was it violent back then, or was it?
Yeah, it was because we rejected it. So people were being shot in the day. People were being
So just
killed.
standard colonialization.
Yeah. So it was just too much. People were being killed because it was alien to us. We don't know what that is. One person can't make laws for us because we believe that no one could be king in our value system. We believe no one could be king, only the supreme being that made the earth, because we believe in the supreme being that made the whole world. So we believe he is the only one that would be king, not human. So erecting someone who tells us what to do and is unquestionable. You can't question his resolve. You can't talk to him.
Humans as well.
Yeah, human.
Just a human.
Yeah. So those were difficult. So we had to revolt against it. We were being shot and all that. Our people at the time.
And this is in terms of time frame.
Yeah. This happened in the 1900s. Before 1900 up until 1900, because Nigeria until 1940, Nigeria was put together in 1914. So this whole thing happened, culminated into what brought about Nigeria in 1914, after the entire system fell. So the British amalgamated the whole territories into what they now call the Niger area, which is Nigeria. So that was it.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Didn't know that was the origin of that name. Changes things slightly.
That's it. So since then, but all before then, the entire territories were called, they were referred to as Biafran territory. They were the Biafrans, and the water front that borders the land was called the Bight of Biafra. So that's the shores that borders the land was called the Bight of Biafra. So all these things were unceremoniously swept away. So that's it.
And that's the origin of, it's the origin story of the terrible things that followed, right? So all these different tribes and peoples were brought together under colonialization under the name of Nigeria. And then I say we, the white people, put in their whoever they wanted to lead the country, and then terrible things followed. So what has happened to the Biafran people and other, tribes in Nigeria, and how has that evolved over the past century?
Yeah, basically, nations are exclusively the prerogative of the Lord Almighty. That's what we believe. Nations are formed are created through wars or convergence or coalescing of value system. I can only live with you in this house if we share same value. If we don't share same value, there's no point. It will be completely meaningless for us to live in the same house. So you can only live with a woman or a man or anybody whom you share same values with. Someone that don't share similar values with you, there's no point living. It would be anarchy everywhere. It would be anarchy. So, the British coming into that part of the world and then balkanizing people and then forcing people into unions, and where they share irreconcilable value system, where you have people who believe that if you don't believe in what they believe, you die. I mean, these are different values, but you have to coexist with them because the British says, these are basically the general problem of Africa as I speak to you today. This is the fundamental problem of Africa. People are fused together in unions. They are not compatible with. Look at what happened. Look at the European countries. Look at when the European countries were all fused together up until 1990, between 1990 and 2000. Look at what happened. They were all back, and today you don't see fighting anymore. All they engage in is in battle for civilization. who will make the best cars, who will make the best standard of living, who will make the system far more civilized than than the counterparts. Those are what's happening in Europe because they understand what self-determination is. So basically, British coming into the territory, and
that's a very important point.
Yeah,
the right to the right to self-determination.
Yeah, right to self-determination.
It's a UN. It's it's in the charter of.
Yeah, it is enshrined in the UN's charter that was ratified in 2007, August 2007. The right to, it was championed by Condoleezza Rice and Bush. So they saw this, let's make this thing possible, since some for the errors of the Europeans in people's territory, let's just correct these things by allowing a space in the UN's charter that allows people to seek for their self-determination. So these things were made possible. But today, I mean, it's still, I mean, not effectively practiced because the same people, they would always stand in between justice.
Well, I guess it's the issue of sovereignty, in that sovereignty is the the supreme power over, a certain territory. And even if people want to self-determine, it's up to the country to actually give them the necessary territory and to relinquish part of their land and all of that. And as we've seen, over centuries, no one really wants to give up power. No one wants to relinquish territories, especially if they're rich in natural resources or whatever. So it's the system itself is not built to deal with these sort of things. There's like an inherent flaw in the accumulation and just the withholding of power.
Yeah, basically that.
So the Biafran people, they want to self-determine because
this whole thing happened because it was just impossible to cohabit with these people in which we found ourselves in the same union with. It was just difficult. This whole happening, there has been aggression from one aggression up until somewhere in the 60s, 1966. A few young officers, toppled the government because corruption and everything. They toppled the government of Nigeria in a military coup d'etat. So, and then that led to, by the next year in 67, that led to the war that started, the war that broke out in Nigeria between the Biafrans and the Nigerians. So that war lasted for 30 months. That's almost 3 years war, in which the Biafrans were blockaded by the British, air, land, and sea, and then weapons were supplied to Nigerian governments, and they were busy, massacring people, like, as in children, women and children, non-combatants. They were busy bombarding schools and where you have refugees, because we were literally refugees in our land. So they were
refugees in our land.
Yeah, we were refugees because they blockaded air, land, and sea. We couldn't escape to anywhere. So we were being bombarded. So we had letters from foreign governments. We have classified documents. The aim was to exterminate us. Those were the aims. It was the then government of Harold Wilson, Prime Minister of UK then. So the aim was to exterminate these people, wipe them from even when Nixon, the president of America, came to power, it was when he saw the pictures of the gory pictures of what was going on, although America was never helpful in any way, but, at least he felt empathy about, what was going on. Human beings were literally slaughtered. Children were literally bombarded. So this
by the Nigerian
government, because they used Egyptian pilots. They used the British supplied the weapons. They used the Egyptian pilot because most of the pilots were the Biafrans. Most of the trained soldiers were the Biafrans, but the Biafrans had to move into their territory because the war was against them. So Nigerian government didn't have trained officers so they were literally using the Egyptian pilots and the Russian weapons and the British weapons.
So just to give this some context, how many people currently live in Nigeria? How many people are Biafrans, and what is it about the Biafran land that is, why why do they want it? What is it? Like, do they have bountiful natural resources? Or, you said there's the Bight of Biafra, which is, access to the sea, which is rather important.
Yeah. Well, the Biafran land, when you talk about Nigeria being one of the largest oil producing, you're talking about Biafran land. It is not Nigeria. It is not Nigeria. The entire oil and gas reserve, coal, and the rest of it you can ever mention, limestone, name it, all are resident in Biafran land. These things is Biafran land. This is what the entire oil companies you're talking about are Shell, BP, Schlumberger, Total, name them. They are all in Biafran land. Yeah, so it's about control of resources. So that is what it's all about. So the British wants to have unrestricted access to the Biafran land. And what it means that if Biafrans were let to be in charge, or rather rule Nigeria at least, because Biafrans, they rule the British, as in the rule the British gave to them was that the Biafrans should never be allowed to take positions of leadership in that country.
So they're second-class citizens.
Yes, they are made not even third class, even when their population says that they are majority in that part of the world. Conservatively, the Biafran people, Nigeria is over 170 million people as we speak, and Biafrans conservatively constitutes about 50 million.
50 million
of that population.
Like close to the population of France or Britain. Or,
yeah. A merge of some European countries, So Biafran people conservatively are over 50 million people, you understand? But they are allowed to fuse, to stay in that contraption called Nigeria. So when you talk about the resources in West Africa, and particularly Nigeria, you're talking about Biafran land. So, but what has been our drive to self-determination has never been about control of our resources. We want to just have control of our lives. We want to determine what to do, what professions to go into, how to develop our lands. We want to, these are basically, to decide our own fate. These are the things we want to do. It is not basically to have freedom, to live like humans. I've lived here in some time now. I understand people, you wake up, you just don't want to work for anybody. I mean, those things are not applicable where I come from. You can't do that. You want to do whatever you want. This is what you want. This is your life. You want to live your life the way we can't.
To exercise the freedom to live as we want.
As you want, as human. Because no one, the moment you were born free. You were born free. You understand? That's exactly what we want to exercise, but we won't be let to express those inalienable rights. You understand? So that is basically what the Biafrans are asking for. We are willing to give anybody that wishes to take our natural resources for us to be. We want to be free. We want to be free. We are dying every day because the jihad, the Muslim of the North, which the British gave powers to, they swore that they are going to dip their Quran in the Atlantic, meaning that they will have to conquer us. We will have to become Muslims. We die every day. They have the Boko Haram terrorist group, they have the Fulani headsmen, and then you have the jihadists in the army, because they control the army, the police. Britain asked them to control the army, the police, the air force, everything. So they literally wear the uniforms, but these are jihadists. They kill our people. People who protest, we are not paid salary, they are shot down.
Well, there was a protest just the other week, right?
Yeah.
A month or two ago, and how many people? At least 100 people died, or something of that nature.
Yeah, over 200, right? And over Amnesty has a report. Over 200 people died. Over 200 were shot there. For 2 years now, we've lost for 2 years. Our people that have died are over 1,000 people. Just by the erecting the last jihadist president, the current jihadist president that was technically imposed on Nigerians by the British. He's a jihadist. So since he was elected, over 1,000 of our people have been murdered. Broad daylight, they're shut down, and nobody talks about it. Nobody.
Yeah, well, as you know, we said at the beginning, and I would say most of the people listening to this have never heard of Biafra, and let alone like what's going on in Nigeria.
Yeah. So that has been our bane. That has been our plight so far. You see, people don't even understand that Nigeria, every day in Nigeria is a festival of death. Every day, one form or the other. It is just not possible for people not to die. Every day people die. Every day people die. You know, one thing people don't appreciate, or one thing people don't seem to understand, is that, you see, these territories that were colonies of the British colonies, the army they have and the police are not for the people. The armies are meant to kill the people. They have never engaged in any war. No, they have never fought. You have never seen Cameroon, just like when you see the France are fighting the Germans. No, you don't see that. The Cameroon cannot fight. The army is for the citizens, the unarmed citizens.
Oppression.
Yeah, for oppressions. These are colonial army. Yes. So all over Africa, Cameroon, look at what's happening in southern Cameroon today. The army is for the citizens. Shoot them dead. Shoot them dead. That's what they are. You know, you understand?
Just to stifle any uprising,
yes,
any movement to self-determine.
To self-determine, to question the status quo, to say, why are we living in poverty amidst abundant resources?
Tell me about what life is like for the Biafran people on the day-to-day, like participating in Nigeria. What is the day-to-day life like? Because I know you said that, you know, you cannot assume positions of power. Is that in government, in the police, or even companies? What's the extent to which the people are oppressed? Because we're talking about, what you said, 50 million people, right? This is, in a way, slavery.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It's modern day slavery, economic and political.
Yes, that's exactly. It was even worse. It's now even worse than what it was used to be in the time of slavery. I swear down, it is worse. Now, when I talk about when you want to talk about the position or the place of the Biafrans within the contraption called Nigeria, you'll understand that there is an iron ceiling has been set already. What I mean is, the Constitution of Nigeria has already made it impossible for Biafrans to be able to participate in lawmaking, in effecting the law, influencing the law, or at least coming up with something that would become a law. Like, let's say, the passing a law or passing a bill for self-determination into the Constitution. It is just impossible, because how? They gave the Biafran people 5 states as against the entire region, the north, the west, and you have the north. There are 4 regions in Nigeria. You have the north, you have the southwest, you have the southeast, you have the south, and then you have the north central, and then northeast and the northwest. So now they gave the Biafran people 5 states within the southeast. They made them the southeast. They divided the southeast into southeast and south. They now, because they want to weaken the Biafrans. So that was after the war. So they made them. They now concentrated the Igbo people, because these were the target. These people were the target. They now concentrated them under 5 states, and then within the south.
And 5 states out of how many? So 5 states.
There
just
are 36 states in Nigeria. 36 states. 36. So they gave them 5 within the region. Within the region, you have 6 regions. They gave them 5. Then they give south, which were used to be southeast. They were all together. They now give them 6 states, which is 5 against 6. Then the southwest, where you have the Yorubas, they give them 6 states. Then the north, the people who are in charge of Nigeria for the British, they now have 7 states, 6 states. 6 states, 6 states. So, and one local government in the north has 40. One state has 40 local government, 40. Then meanwhile in the south you have one has just 8 local government. One state has just 8, and one has 40. So it means that when you combine all the states in the southeast, that can't amount to 40. 40 local government. That is to show you. And these are the people that go into the parliament, into the bicameral legislatures to make the laws. So what it means that your 5 states and your representatives can never be able to come up with laws or bills that can be passed into law in the land, because you're a minority. You've already been made a minority. That's exactly what's happening there. So recently as 2 days ago, they brought in a bill for Southeast Development Commission for what was damaged since after the war. The federal government has
like 60 years ago,
like 60 years ago, like 50 years ago. They brought up a bill for the government it was stamped down by the rest of the people, because it can't be passed because you guys are few. There's never a time when you guys would
have a majority.
Yeah, will have a majority in the house. It's just impossible. So that's what's going on. So Biafrans, mathematically, it is impossible for them to be able to influence the laws of the land, or to be able to come up with a bill or law, or to pass a bill into law. So they have been mathematically been excluded. Do you understand? So that's what's going on. It is not possible. So now, in terms of politics, the British make sure that the northern Nigeria is always in position to rig the census and to make themselves majority, and then to say that they are the majority in population.
And then say it's democratic,
yes.
This is democracy
yes.
actually working properly. This is how things are meant to be.
Yes.
Meanwhile, there's 50 million people in the South being oppressed.
Being oppressed. So that is it. The Biafrans, in terms of population census, in terms of Biafrans can't, because they always rig the last election were rigged. The pictures, we have the evidence. Children were being used. These are infantile voting. Children were busy casting vote. These things were revealed. The facts are there, but nobody's going to ask questions. Nobody's going to come in, because the British would always interfere with fair justice. That is it. So the Biafrans, they have been politically, been disarmed. They can't amount to anything in that space. There is nothing. The only way they can only seek is by taking up arms, or by going back through the instruments which the UN provided, of which, they have been yearning, they have been shouting for decades now. There has been a conspiracy against them. They all connive to repress and then to make sure that the world does not hear their cry. So that has been the bane of the Biafran people so far.
So in the war 50 or 60 years ago, you say 60 years, 50 years ago, how many people died? How many?
Over 6 million people. Yeah, over 6 million people.
So that's more than the Jews in the Second World War, and it's basically genocide. It was
it was genocide. It was genocide. It was just the Biafran people. The reason it's not recorded. You're going to shout. You're going to be exclaimed at that. You're going to ask questions. Why, amongst the international records for genocide, Biafran's genocide is not part of it? Why? Because the people who are against it, they know how much life that were lost. You can't talk about it. People would shout. They knew. So they can't even record it. They're talking about Rwandan genocide. They're talking about a few other people where 500 to 1 million people, 500,000 people died. Biafrans were massacred. Literally, my mom was the only survivor. I want to tell you what it means. My mom was born in a family of 10. My mom was the only survivor. The person that survived with her died later after the war had ended. My mom is the only survivor, and I'm alive today. I want you to understand. 10, and the rest of the family were wiped out. I want you to understand. Kwashiorkor, Kwashiorkor sickness, where babies would have overbloated tummy because there was no food.
Malnutrition.
Yeah, malnutrition, no food, because they were blockaded. So that was it. So it was one of the worst crime against humanity. It is not talked about because it was, you should know what it means not to talk about. It was beyond human. What happened, atrocities after the war. every inch. You can't, you cannot walk. After the war, you cannot walk. Dead bodies, you cannot walk. You have to be stepping on people for you to move. Yeah, that was how we died. Yeah. And it wasn't like it stopped and we kept on dying up until this day. The day Trump was elected as president of America, people were celebrating, feeling that at least somebody who is not of jihadist leaning had come to power in America. Over 20 people were shot dead. Over 20 people were busy shooting people in Nigeria,
yeah.
in Biafran land. So that is it. It's terrible. It's terrible. As in, I can't begin to talk this and not talk that. I mean, it is so much that I'm even overwhelmed. I don't know which one to talk about. I'm just.
What's it like? I mean, we're in a bit of a bubble in Australia, I personally, at least. So life is very good here, and you're living here, and it's a comfortable life. But each day, what's going on back home. I mean, there's a radio station run by...
It's run by the Nigerian state. But we have a Biafran radio that speaks...
every day.
Yeah, that speaks every day about our plight. It was recently as 2009 that the radio came to air. Because we've been muzzled. They use all forms to put us down, including the policies and the.
Well, you don't have a voice.
We don't have a voice. You can imagine in the Nigerian state, amongst over 250 tribes that make up Nigeria, the Biafrans has the highest cutoff mark to enter into any unity school, any government school. They have the highest.
So if you might need 60%, someone might need 60% to enter. Biafrans might need 85% just to enter.
Yeah, let me give you an example. Biafran needs to score 300 in an examination as against 50 for people who has been ruling Nigeria since it was created. The same dummies who can't compete with the Biafrans are the people ruling against the Biafrans. Meanwhile, the Biafrans would have to score the highest to go into public schools. I mean, and
so
then
it's complete oppression, academic,
and everywhere. Then you have another thing they called quota system in the constitution and federal character. The quota system says that when there are 5 positions in any of the parastatals, and people take the entrance and take the exam, and then three Biafrans made it. The quota system says no for 3 of you. We will take just 1 and then take 2 from the north that didn't make it at all into that position because they are more in number. That's what they say. They are more in number, and then take 2 and then take 1 from every other tribe that made it or that didn't make it, just to represent everybody. That is what the quota system says, and the federal character. So we have to represent everybody. It doesn't matter what's the stake or the importance of that position. Everybody has to be represented. So what it means that they kill merits on the altar of one Nigeria. So they try to murder the ingenuity of the Biafrans or every other person that are not the northern Nigeria, the ruling people. That is it. That is, there is all sort of heinous policies and crimes have been committed against us. Everything you can ever think of, they have been used against us. Our people have been traveling abroad. Our people are scattered all over the world, America, everywhere, Australia, everywhere, trying to eke out a living because life is just intolerable. So that has been that.
And what's the infrastructure like in parts of Biafra? What are the roads like, and the pathways and electricity? What's the access to those resources like in comparison with, the northern parts of Nigeria?
You can in the northern part of Nigeria, you can drive for 6 hours closing your eyes. In the Biafran land, the roads are death traps. There is a bridge that has expired for more than 20 years now, or going to 30 years now. The only bridge in Biafran land, the only major bridge in Biafran land is called the Niger Bridge. The Niger Bridge. This bridge, for decades, the government of the North, whichever government that comes to power, there has been politics. Nothing has started. The only bridge has expired. The only bridge. But when you go to the northern part of Nigeria, you see new bridges. They are building new ones. They're flying bridges here and there. Where are the resources coming from? From Biafran land. So the roads in Biafran land, the interconnecting roads are death traps. As I speak to you, when I said every day is a festival of death, it's either the government, it is government-sponsored terrorism where the government are shooting the people,
or just neglect.
Yeah, or the Fulani headsmen are killing our people because they are moving their cattle to the south where you have the grazing grass, or you have the Boko Haram bombing everywhere, killing people in churches because our people are the Christians. I mean, they go to churches and then bomb, and the churches, our people die in the marketplaces where our people are traders. Our people are traders. So, and the roads are that accident every day. Accident every day. Oh, if I show you some of the pictures in my phone, accident that happened recently, you would see where people are limbs and heads are just chopped off in an accident scene because the cars were so compressed that, the parts would just, go into human bodies. It's terrible.
So what's happening now? What's going on with the Biafran people? What's the, we kind of expressed what the end goal is for the people. How is that going? What sort of movements have arisen or have been around for a while? What's the current situation?
Okay, this whole thing led to a young man, a Biafran who's resident in London, to float the radio station, which is the Radio Biafra, to educate the world, to educate the Biafran people and by extension the world about our plight, about what we're going through. The radio has been around since 2009, sensitizing and educating our people on who we are and the reason why we need to stand up and then fight. It doesn't matter what the circumstances and the prices we'll have to pay. So the young man, he's educated in London, first, second, and third degree. He's the leader. He formed a group called the Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB. In over 88 countries around the world, gathering our people as they are scattered, gathering them, preparing them. So, but as recently as 2015, he was caught by the Nigerian, and he was kidnapped by the Nigerian security forces and then put in prison for months.
Where was he kidnapped?
Where
was he when he was kidnapped?
He's been coming and going. And it was when the radio was now making way. A lot of people were now buying into the truth because the radio was basically preaching the truth, what's going on in Nigeria, because the world doesn't even know. So he was preaching the truth on the radio. So the radio was now gathering momentum. It was gathering sympathy. People were now listening and then getting educated. So when he planned to come to Biafran land, so he landed in because there are no international airports in Biafran land. You can imagine a region that provides 90% or 98% of the revenue for the government. They don't have international airports. That's sad. They don't have a seaport. They are by the ocean. They don't have a seaport. So it's just funny. There are seaports, but they are shut down. The federal government shut the seaports down. And then they use one seaport which is resident in the west. So that is it.
Oh, what's this guy's name?
His name is Nnamdi Kanu. Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of IPOB. Al Jazeera recently interviewed him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he's been released, but on stringent bail condition. He won't grant interview to journalists. He would have to provide a Jewish surety. He would have to, the bails, he can't be seen in a gathering of more than 10 people. It was a stringent bail condition, from in 2015, he was kidnapped and then put in prison. And then after a few months, he was taken to court. He was tortured and then taken to court. And then the Biafran people have been protesting since then. Each time they come to court, the court on 3 occasions have granted him bail because they couldn't find, there was no evidence. The federal government was accusing him of treason, of trying to fight against the state, you know, and you know, we were trying to, his counsel was trying to let the court know that self-determination is in the law, is in the international law, which Nigeria is signatory to. It is for people to seek for their self-determination is enshrined in the United Nations law, you know. But I mean, that's, please, they don't understand. Nigeria is a lawless empire. Nothing moves there. So they kept on taking him to court. They kept on looking for evidence they couldn't find. On 3 occasions, the government, the federal government, it was the president that put him in prison, not the president. It was the president. The president doesn't like him because he was speaking all the evils that the current jihadist president, you know, participated in. So he spoke overwhelmingly about that. So it was the president, he said, because the president was interviewed by Al Jazeera. He said he was a one. I mean, if you see it flagrantly, you know, that he should be remanded in the prison, you know. So that is it. So, you know, it kept on happening. The Biafrans kept on protesting. They were being shut down. They kept on protesting. Each time they get up to protest, they'll be shut down. Sometimes, as recently as 9th February 2016, they were praying in the field somewhere in Biafran land. The army went there where they were praying. Women, children, youth, they were shot. The video is there. Poured acid, the ones that were survived on the bullets, some bullet wounds, you know, acids were used on them, on their faces, just to be poured, but very few survived, but their faces have been, I mean, the amnesty saw this, it was hell. If you see, a lot is going on there. So until a few months, that was last month last month, the leader took ill. So, and his council kept on pressing that he needs, because he seized his his British passport. They said he can't travel abroad, he can't do anything. So they now granted him bail on health grounds. Then with stringent bail conditions, he can't be seen in a gathering of 10 people, of which this is a person that controls over 70 million people, you know, around the world, because the Biafrans living around the world, everything in totality are over 70 million people. This is a man that controls them. You're asking not to be in a gathering of 10 people, that he cannot be seen in a gathering of 10 people. So they released him on health grounds. So since he's been released, people have been visiting from all sundry, including the foreign journalists. They were coming. Al Jazeera just came the other day, interviewed him. The Al Jazeera was like, you know, they asked him questions about the bail conditions. I mean, you know, and a few other questions and everything. So he insisted that we would have to go through referendum as recognized, just like the UK and the Scotland that have gone for referendum and they failed, and they are going for another referendum to leave UK, their secession. So we are insisting on going through referendum. So that was what he said recently. A lot of people have been visiting him, different leaders from different places within Biafran land, different groups, different pressure groups, including foreign journalists. A lot of people have been visiting him. You know, he's a prince. He's in his father's palace. You know, so, and he's an heir to his father's throne. You know, so, you know, that's what's going on now. The Biafrans are still insisting on the 30th of May. The Biafrans celebrated or commemorated their fallen heroes, the people that died in the 3 years war that gulped over 6 million of their people. You know, they remember their heroes, the people that they fought to the last man. You know, they celebrated 50 years and then remembered them. So that was recently. But what was remarkable on that day was that Biafrans declared sit at home. So they shut down the whole of Biafran land. The government deployed the army and the police. They refused. The government of Nigeria refused that the people can't do that.
Like take the day off.
Can't take the day off. You can imagine. So you can imagine the kind of force. As in, are you going to force people out of their homes to go and indulge in business, to go to school, to go to market? You can imagine they deployed army, police everywhere, all over Biafran land. They cannot do that. But the Biafran land wanted to let the world know that we are united and we want to leave this entity called Nigeria. The whole Biafran land, the streets everywhere was bare, was like a dead zone, was laid bare. It was just the security forces everywhere. They were mad. The government was shocked. The whole world was shocked because the British, everybody saw it. Everybody, Al Jazeera came. Everybody were shocked. The whole street, major streets, because major markets in West Africa is in Biafran land because they are traders. The two major markets, the whole bridge, that very bridge I told you, everywhere was deserted. So they were shocked.
To come together to remember those fallen.
Yeah, because the leader he said he's a sit at home for Biafran land. The other people around the world can go on evangelism. Like I went to Sydney. We all converge, the whole of Australia, those of us in Australia, we all converge in Sydney for the evangelism where we are talking to people, sharing our flyers, educating people. So, but in Biafran land was a shutdown. The ground, it was shut down. It cost the government about 6.3 billion, according to $3 billion, according to,
Hit them where it hurts. In the pockets.
Yeah. So that's what's going on presently.
So we'll wrap up shortly. Is there anything that you'd like to say to the people listening, or are there any things that you'd just like to mention before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to bring our problems, bring our plight, what we're going through, our sufferings to the world, and to let them know that the suffering hasn't even. It's just intolerable. It's not ending any soon. So we're asking the world and whoever that would be listening to this our podcast to understand that we are suffering. It is not just the Biafran people. Africa is not free. Some people, when they look at Africa, they just like it for some reason, and they just wonder why things can't move there. But they just don't understand that Africa is not free. That is the reason. People don't understand. They are not free. They are not free. These things, they just give illusion. They just give them flag independence. They just, every grain of sand in especially in countries like Nigeria are owned by the British. Every grain of sand. No, Africa is not free. So we are speaking to the world. We want to be free. The Biafran people, we have died enough. We are speaking to the world to add their voice, to speak up. Because it is people, the power still belongs to the people, we believe, especially in free societies like Australia and every other free societies that share the same ideal. We are asking them, asking them and then pleading and then begging that they should come to our rescue. They should speak up, they should stand up, they should talk to, add their voice and then talk to these people who have hell bent on subjugating other humans, to at least let people breathe for one beat, So that's what I'm asking. People should add their voice. The Biafran people in West Africa are suffering under Nigeria. Nigeria is a colonial empire. It is not an African country. It is a colonial empire, It is own
economic slavery.
Yeah, we are under economic, political slavery. It is worse than what you had in the 15th century slavery. It was worse than that. People had drinking water at that time. People had access. We don't have access to drinking water. We don't have access to. When I say drinking water, that is the most basic, so that people can understand how much we suffer there. We don't have access to drinking water. Our waters are polluted by British oil companies. But you can't do these things elsewhere. The other day, British oil companies in the Gulf of Mexico exploded. You can imagine how much they had to pay. They were subjected to pay. But who pays for us? Who stands in our case, no, we die. We just literally, we literally live like less than animals. I mean, animals have access to good water and food, and we can't breathe. We can't do everything. So
complete repression in all ways.
Beyond imagination.
So how can the people listening to this, if what you've said has galvanized them and they want to help out in some way, shape or form, you said adding their voice, what are other ways in which they can help, and are there certain websites or places that they can go to help out?
Yeah, people can visit www.radiobiafra.com. You can visit www.rblworld.tv. You can visit www.radiobiafrabroadcast.co. So these are the websites you can go to read about the Biafran people, and then you can also go to UN's page, UN's website, and then urge them in whatever capacity you can do that. The United Nations needs to understand that Biafrans have had a age-long suffering. Biafran people have died enough. So I believe that people who are listening, if they can add their voice, if they can speak to UN in whatever capacity, and then seek for ways to take this message to most of these international these world bodies, the Amnesty, the United Nations, and the rest of other global bodies. That would be a goal for the Biafran people.
And if people want to get in touch with you, for some reason, how would they go about that? What would be the best way?
I'm on Twitter. You can get in touch with me. I'm the coordinator of IPOB here in Queensland. I have my Facebook page, Okekenta Gosife. That's my Facebook page. And my Twitter is Okekenta D. That's my Twitter handle, at Okekenta D. Then you can find me if you're here in Australia. You can type IPOB Australia forum on Facebook. You can get us. So those are the contact points.
And I'll put all of those links in the notes on the internet, so people can get in touch. All right. Well, Gosife, thank you very much for taking the time to share your story.
Thank you so much for giving me this time. I am more than happy, because we believe that we can never rest on our laurels. We'll continue to talk to people who believe in humanity, because we understand that no matter how bad the people out there are, they are still people with good conscience, So thank you so much. You're one of those people who've taken it upon yourself, like the people in the past, to create a change, to bring a change in the world. It happened in the 1800s. It happened in the 1900s. When people stood against injustice, the people were dying for it. A young Jewish boy, set himself ablaze in front of United Nations in America when the Biafrans were dying. If you see the pictures of children that were dying, the guy came in front of, his name is Bruce Mayrock. He set himself ablaze. He poured himself fuel and then lit himself. Since the whole world has kept quiet while the Biafrans were dying, the man who owns Apple, he gave up Christianity because of the Biafran people. Seeing the videos and how women and children were being slaughtered, he had to give up Christianity. That was
Tim Cook?
No.
Steve Jobs?
Steve Jobs. Yeah. Steve Jobs. So it was because of the Biafran people he gave up Christianity, So, and a host of other people. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, thank you again to Gosife for the conversation. All of the links to what we discussed in the episode can be found in the show notes at talkoftoday.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, head to talkoftoday.com/support or go straight to patreon.com/talkoftoday. You can sign up to be my patron for as little as $1 a month. And I'm also accepting Bitcoin and Ethereum now. So if you want to send some of that on my way as a means of supporting me, that is more than welcome. I'm not going to be running any ads on this podcast. So by sponsoring me, you are literally making this possible. And your support humbles me. Your generosity will help me work on this full time, as I'm currently supporting myself with a few days a week of work. And I'd love to be able to talk about ideas and what's going on in the world full time because, God, what a dream that would be. I'm also looking to buy some new audio equipment to improve the quality of my in-person interviews. I don't know if you might have noticed, but some of the interviews like this one and the one with Brendan Markey Towler on engineering a viral idea, those were done in person and the audio quality is noticeably worse. And that's just because of my budget setup, which I think cost me about $200, excluding my laptop and phone. So your donations will go towards getting some better equipment so that when I interview people in person, the sound will be nice and up to my standards. Over the next couple of months, I'm actually going to be in the US and Canada, and I think I'm going to be doing a lot of interviews in person. So I want to get this equipment sooner rather than later so that, these podcasts don't sound like crap. And if you don't want to support financially, that is understandable. You can also support the podcast through talking to this about your friends, sharing it on social media, anything. So thank you again for listening. I really appreciate it. Oh, actually, I'll just tell you about the 2 podcasts that are coming up. The next one is on the inevitable technologies that are going to shape our future with Kevin Kelly. Now, Kevin Kelly was the co-founder of Wired Magazine, and he currently holds the position of Senior Maverick, which is a pretty badass title. And he could also be referred to as the Prophet of Silicon Valley. So I was super stoked to have him on the show, and that was a really interesting conversation talking about artificial intelligence, virtual and augmented reality, just a whole host of things. And his book, The Inevitable, is highly recommended. I've listened to it twice over the past 2 months. And if you want to get a picture of what the world is going to look like when it comes to technology, I highly recommend giving that a read. And the one following that is going to be on meditation with Dr. Sarah Lazar from Harvard University. And we talk about meditation and yoga and how it affects the brain. So if you're at all interested in that, please check it out. And I think that's all for now, folks. So thank you very much for listening to the end. Any feedback or whatever is welcomed. Just hit me up through talkoftoday.com, through Facebook. Talkoftoday.com is the best way to get to it because there are lots of links there. So thanks again and fare thee well. Ella. 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 Ella.